start on an inductive message. His promise to Haiti. It's a fundraiser that we're having at the Daniel Stove Gardens on May 9th.
Yeah, they gotta hear you online.
Oh, they're online?
Yeah.
I told you that already.
Yeah, right?
All right, so the engagement will be May 9th. Our keynote speaker will be Brooklyn Decker. And the intent here, and I have the paragraphs on Dr. Theodore P. He's a surgeon. He spent 42 years of his life building up this hospital. So we have a 70-bed hospital. We have 6 clinics. And what we're trying to do in the pediatric wing is get the devices for the pediatric wing. The devices come to about $216,000. And our objective is to try to get as much of that as a device into the hospital operating running. The demographics are that we're reaching 150,000 patients a year right now. We think children will add about another 100. It'll go out in a 20-mile radius of Pignon. We're in the Central Plateau. There's really been no earthquakes, nothing for the last 20 years. So the idea is to build, we have 7 schools, elementary schools. We have an airport, if you want to call it that. It's like a pineapple plantation, which I have that in India, on the land. And so I'm hopeful. I spent 3 years in Africa during the Truth and Reconciliation Commission on the government transfer. And I went in 2005 with the King of Swaziland at a UN function that I was invited to, trying to honor people and put a light on what was really happening in South Africa. Well, the AIDS epidemic overwhelmed all the good work that was being done in South Africa. And instead of honoring the people that were behind it, Nelson Mandela, Bishop Tutu, it went more to how do I improve the Haiti? In this case, how do I improve the 3 cocktails that are going into people when they have to walk 5 to 7 kilometers? So that's for wood, that's for food, and that's where we wanted to go to 3 cocktails. At that point, I had a friend of mine at GD who said, Whitney, we got it down to $5. I said, that's not going to do any good. 500, I said 5. I said, they can't afford the 500. They're walking for food, they're walking for firewood. How do you expect them to go this distance? And what I'm troubled with here with Haiti, we have the same thing in Haiti. Do people have to walk several kilometers, firewood, several kilometers in terms of what they can get to eat? A lot of people die because their diseases are not diagnosed. And what we're trying to do is build this infrastructure. So what we have in the future is a mecca for hospitals in the north. So remember, there's the south end, which is all the earthquakes. This hasn't had any. This has 2 surgeons. It has all the basis for growth. 120 acres was just turned over for farmland. There's a private businessman who just purchased 20,000 acres to do the same thing, grow what we can consider export and also for domestic consumption. So my talk here today is to honor Theodore B. He will be with us then. He has retired, and the new chairman will be a surgeon from Paramount Hospital. I don't know if you know this, but Paramount is on the Belmont Abbey College campus, and they're making a big push for nursing. I'm on the advisory board for the nursing program. So what I'm trying to do is tie in the needs of the hospital in Pignon with the Abbey so that they can have information like this to learn. No, I said the wrong thing. Information like that to learn and to educate, as well as come back up and get their cross-pollination. That's where we're at, and the hope is we'll have sponsors for $1,000 a table, there'll be 20 tables, and $100 a person for the evening. And that includes both entertainment. So what I'm here for, and I thank you for the 5 minutes, is to say, here's a great man, and here's somebody that needs to be honored and respected. And what we're trying to do is get the funding to go totally to this new wing. I hope that clarifies anything. I'm trying to make it succinct for your program. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Well, what I wanted you to do as well, I wanted you to let them know the club is where you're from and your whole name to everybody here.
Okay, so my name is Whitney Norton. I'm in the Belmont Club. I've been a member there since 1986. I've lived all over the world. My job function is to put companies together for products. So I was in Africa for 3 years with VF Corporation. I was in India for 10 with Coats Viola India. when they moved all their operations from the UK there. And so in this basis, I've seen a lot of what happens, a lot of what's needed. And my heart cries out that a lot of people in this hemisphere don't recognize what the 60% unemployment looks like. And so I'm in the humble Belmont Club. We have about 30, 35 members, but I'm trying to get to every club in the district to speak on behalf of Dr. B. And if there's any questions over here, I hope I've answered everything.
Hey, wait, quick picture for you, please.
Sure.
If I might, I want to add to that. Whitney is, I talked to George Solomon last night. George is a PDG from New York, and George has been involved with Gift of Life for many years. But Gift of Life is a nonprofit that specializes in assisting children with heart defects or heart issues. George has been to a number of countries around the world and participated in some of these Gift of Life operations that are literally saving kids' lives all around the world. And typically they're from impoverished communities. What Whitney is doing is a part and parcel of that, but we're going to hear more about Gift of Life from George, I believe sometime in April he's going to speak. So Whitney, we'll make sure we
and this is the gentleman that we're honoring, and functionally May 9th, he will be there. And so will Dr. Omar Shed, who now heads the board. What we've done differently, I worked 10 years ago on a project with Molly Basin and Terry Shook, an architect. And we were working with a huge church which had 30,000 members. They were really getting so bad. The pastor developed suddenly pancreatic cancer and died in very short order, and the whole issue collapsed. He was driven around the dynamic individual of that pastor. This is the same thing, and I want to carry it on. So I've listed his background. I have on here a listing of the devices. And so I've suggested to every club, if we just gave a few $1,000s, we could get the pediatric wing. So that's my story.
And the May 9th that you're speaking of, where is this, the gala, where's that event going to be?
I'm going to send here all the invitations,
Okay,
but it's
okay.
the Daniel Stowe Botanical Gardens.
Okay.
In Belmont.
In Belmont, okay.
And you'll be able to see the gardens. You know, there's be nobody else there but us. So you'll be able to walk in if you want to see anything in the gardens, that's right there.
thank you, sir.
Okay, well, thank you so very much. Thank you. Everyone, yes, we are. It's 12:02. So we'll be doing, bringing our speaker on at 12:10. So with that being the case, thank you so very much, Whitney. So with that being the case, bringing our speaker on at 12:10, it's 12:02. Are there other announcements?
Go ahead, sir.
Right ahead.
Yes, sir, thank you. My name is Michael Rowlike. I'm a 41-year vet with the U.S. Army, and I was also on that Zoom link that you all had when brother spoke about the,
Buffalo Soldiers.
thank you, at a senior moment. But the Buffalo Soldiers, I thought it was so nice, I wanted to do it twice. So I'm here today. I also represent the Charlotte Mecklenburg NAACP, where Corinne Mack is the president. And she wanted to come here so bad today, but she had this virus that just won't get away from her. So she notified us today that she wasn't able to make it. So
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you so much.
And this is being recorded, so it will be available for her to view later.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Awesome. Additional announcement.
Just wanted to say, there's an article in the Dilworthian about Zoom formation meetings. We really get not so good participation in these meetings. They're held virtually, but if they're held monthly by our zone director, who's currently Jeremy Hurst, and soon to be Patrick Eakes, beginning July 1st. But if you have an opportunity to dial into these Zoom formation meetings, they are incredibly informative about things that are going on, not just in the district, but in our entire zone, which is comprised of 32, 33 different districts just in our zone, and another 31 or 32 districts in zone 34, because we're paired with 34. if you have the opportunity to do it, it's 45 minutes. Please dial into those things. They're very interesting. Thank you, sir.
I would be remiss not to ask, continue to ask if anyone, anyone who's a member of our club, that is clubs include the Impact Club members. If you would like to join me on Saturday, May 2nd, really learn in detail about what Rotary is, the history of Rotary, what this organization does around the world, what they've done, why and how they were founded, the purposes and missions of Rotary over the past 100 years or so. The Rotary Leadership Institute that I'm going to be attending, I'm doing level 2 on Saturday, May 2nd. And if you have the opportunity and the time to come, you can do, if you haven't done it at all, then you'll be doing Rotary Leadership Institute level 1. There is a cost, it's not free, but the fee is great, awesome information, great dialogue in connection between everyone. And it's gonna be in Anderson, South Carolina on Saturday, May 2nd, just that day. We drive down and drive back home, so it's not something that you're staying overnight for or anything. So just wanted to put that out there. Anyone would like to, just let me know, you can send an email, Jenny or Becca, have mine, and I would love to, then make sure you have the link so you can sign up and come down. We can head down there and represent Dilworth Rotary down at the Rotary Leadership Institute. Yes,
Can't
sir.
be the second.
May 2nd.
That's a Thursday. It has to be the fourth. If you keep telling me.
Maybe it's,
It has to be,
okay.
it can't be the second. I know.
Okay, so it's a Saturday.
I actually think it's March.
Am I saying May?
It's March.
I said May, I meant to say March. I thought I'm thinking March and I'm saying May. I had a senior
I
moment.
was thinking about doing that, but I can't do that first weekend in March.
March 2nd, Saturday, March 2nd. Why you didn't get on me, Jenny? So, thank you. March 2nd. I'm thinking March and saying May. Something must be really going on in May. But anyway, Saturday, March 2nd is when the Rotary Leadership Institute is. That's next month. Oh my God, thank you guys. It's a good thing I'm saying what I'm thinking.
Maybe you were thinking about the party in the park, Dale.
Definitely, I think I have that in my mind. So then I'll put out that, so it's time to introduce me. Yeah, that 12:07. So, on Saturday, first I'll back up. Friday, May 17th, we will be having our Dilworth Rotary, what is the proper term?
Ladder Park.
No, that's not a park, but
Just our annual celebration.
our annual celebration at Ladder Park here in Dilworth, in the Dilworth community, on Friday, May 17th. We'll be having that event, our annual event, and that will still be at the same time,
Same time.
11:30, and at the Ladder Park here in Dilworth.
At the pavilion.
Oh, yeah, at the pavilion. And the food is out of this world. They always make sure it is, and the time and the celebration. You get to see this beautiful garden and arrangement that Dilworth Rotary has done as well out at the park area. It is so beautiful with the memorial of our members, of some of our established, distinguished members. It's really a beautiful opportunity.
And we are dedicating two of the new plants.
Oh, yes, sir.
One for Barbara's husband Clyde.
Awesome.
So that's gonna be done that day.
Awesome. It's gonna be a beautiful day. And the very next day, May 18th, in collaboration and partnership and love with the Dilworth Neighborhood Association, we are having the Dilworth Jubilee in the park, and it's going to be a hoot. It's gonna be a great time, fun time. Everyone, bring your lounge chair. Okay, you can sit down and watch everybody run around crazy, because you're not gonna do it. Just watch them tire themselves out, but have a drink on us while you're doing it. So we're gonna have a wine tent where we're gonna sell glasses of wine, hamburgers, hot dogs. We get to do, that's gonna be the Dilworth Rotary. There will be other vendor trucks there as well that are selling Latin food and what have you, other culture foods. It's gonna be a great time. Saturday, May 18th, 12 to 5. The Dilworth Jubilee, and our event on Friday, May 17th, is going to be 11:30 until the cows go home. How about that? So we're gonna have a good time. And then next week, I'll be joining the meeting virtually next week because I have to be in Raleigh for a state conference for the Veterans American Legion for leadership, so I have to be there to do my presentation for Mecklenburg County and such. So I'll be joining virtually this meeting on next week, and then I'm celebrating my 55th birthday next Saturday. So I'm excited about that, but I'll be doing it in Raleigh at the conference. So it's okay, it's all right. I get to meet 5'5". God thank you. Okay, it is now time to introduce our keynote speaker.
Thank you so much, Mr. President. Good afternoon, everyone. I am so delighted to introduce a returning guest speaker. Ronald Harrill was here with us last month, and he talked on, was actually part one of the Buffalo Soldiers. So today he'll be speaking on part two of the Buffalo Soldiers. Ronald is a historian, author, and lecturer on the history of Africa and the African people. He is the author of 3 books, 3 plays, and over 200 poems. He has written an international award-winning book, Lakita, Queen of Sheba. And Ronald, if you could just hold that book up. I saw it right there. Beautiful book.
This one.
Yes. This book right here. His latest historical-based book, Children of Genesis, The Black Nations of the Old Testament, continues to gain popularity. His books are published under his company, R. Harrill Enterprises Incorporated. He has traveled to West Africa, North Africa, and Israel for study and research. Ronald currently serves on the board of directors for Cleveland County United Way and Community Math Academy Incorporated. He has previously served as a board member and chairperson of the Cleveland County Arts Council located in Shelby. So Ronald lives in Shelby, he and his wife, and they're the proud parents of 3 sons. So we thank him so much for taking the time out to drive all the way from Shelby to be here to share such rich history with us. So let's give Ron a nice warm welcome.
Holding you out. Is it afternoon now?
Good afternoon.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you again. It's part 2, but how many people are here for the first that didn't hear part 1? Okay, we gotta do a quick refresh. Okay, that's good. That's really good. I'm gonna talk about the Buffalo Soldiers again. I'm gonna start out giving a quick update so everybody gets level with us, and then I'll continue on, try to pick up where we were the last time. I do the Buffalo Soldiers 2 or 3 or 4 times a year, but my specialty is ancient Africa before the birth of Christ. All my books are in the ancient world. I don't write books on the modern world, and students look at me like, why would you do that? You know, it's just my subject matter of expertise. So all my books are on African queens and biblical things of that nature. We had a hot Zoom session last night, sponsored by the NAACP. Probably the best lecture I've done this year was last night, because I've gotten some feedback already. So that I appreciate y'all sponsoring that one last night. So this week I have been introduced so many times, I don't even know who I am. I mean, I just every night I got it. It's February, Black History Month, so it's like our Christmas. This is our Christmas month. But last time I was here, I gave you some background on why the Buffalo Soldiers were important. And I thought I would give you a treat because my coaches, this is my fraternity brother right here. My coaches always tell me I don't talk enough about in detail myself. I don't talk about my wife, I don't talk about my children and things like that. So I'm gonna share with y'all something that I never shared in a lecture. Because the thing about the Buffalo Soldiers and the conflict with the Native Americans, there's a little twitch in me because, Cheryl, I want you to show everybody, this is my great-great-grandmother, okay? And she does not look like me, okay? She is Native American, so just show it to them. She's full Cherokee, and we go to this family reunion every year. Every single year, she's at the head of it. She was born in 1850, so every 3rd weekend in July, we go to this family reunion, and but yeah, she's full Cherokee. So sometimes what you see is not what you get, but I don't really talk about it that much, and I don't do the claiming or anything like that, but my grandmother looks like that, the one that raised me, and my grandmother was her pet, and of course, I didn't know her, she was born in 1850, but my grandmother, if I could redo something, when I was 13, 14, my grandmother used to talk about all these stories about her, and I had no idea who she was talking about. Had I known now, I should have recorded all those stories when she was sitting on her lap and everything, but my maternal grandmother kind of looks like her, but that's a picture from 1896. Yes.
What was your name for her? What did your relatives call her?
You mean a name I can repeat? Her name, because they had to transfer names to be blended into America, so they took the Thomas name. So her name is Selena Thomas.
Did you have like a family name for her though, like?
No,
Okay.
no, it's the Thomas family reunion, and she had 7 children. And when you go to this reunion, you have to know which of her 7 kids, because that's how you get into the reunion. You have to know which of the 7 kids, because that's what they ask you. So when I was dating my wife, and this is 40 years ago, and we went to the first reunion, she kept looking and looking, because this is in the mountains. She said, "Are you sure? Are you sure this is your family reunion?" Because she said, I'm just trying to get to know. She said, "Oh, because we got there early." She said, "Are you sure this is your family?" But it's a cool thing.
Are this is from Shelby area?
No, she is from the McDowell County, Burke County.
Yes.
Okay, so that's where we carry the Thomas name, and so it's a cool name. And the youngest one, we did have one of our young cousins, Alec Thomas, was the center fielder for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Yeah, so if you see him again, I don't know him, but he carries the name. But going back here, Buffalo Soldiers, just to give you a little bit of level playing field. After the Civil War, there was a great debate in the US Congress what to do with the Union soldiers who fought and whether or not Black men were worthy to serve in the United States Army in peace times. So on the floor of the Senate was some heavy debates. A lot of the Southern senators definitely were against it. And a lot of senators from other areas were, okay, maybe we should allow them to continue. The debates centered around whether or not Black men had the courage, the aptitude, the intelligence, the bravery, and the discipline to even be soldiers. And these were serious debates. Out of that came the compromise. And the compromise was, yes, we will allow them to be soldiers with certain restrictions that we talked about the last time. The first restriction was it had to be an all segregated unit. The second was that the officers had to all be all white officers. And I did research what you said about the segregation, how long did it last, and you were right. It's interesting that they set those laws, but Herbert Hoover in 1948 did pass that law that you brought up to say that Truman, that all of the military going into the Korean conflict would be fully integrated. So, but in 1867, they formed what were 2 units, the 9th Cavalry and the 10th Cavalry, and 4 regiments. There were 4 regiments associated with them. As I mentioned last time, the 9th Cavalry trained in Greenville, Louisiana, and the 10th Cavalry went to Kansas. Some things about Louisiana in 1867. They purposely, now I've only been to northern Louisiana, but in parts of Louisiana where the floodplains are and the flood areas, they put them purposely in their headquarters directly into that flood area. So when it rained, all of the Black soldiers, they were just inundated, and a lot of them got sick. And I didn't mention that before, but they got sick so quickly, and hygiene and things like that. But that's what the Army did, was they put them in that flood area when they were training. But they made it out of that. the head of the military in Louisiana sent out a decree when the black troops first got there, telling everybody in the state that he did not support blacks in the military. And another thing that I didn't tell y'all, one of the leading, and I can't believe he did this, one of the leading military officers in Louisiana changed the name of his horse to the N-word. Okay? Yeah, he actually checked so that he could ride up and back in front of those new recruits on his horse. But that's just the way it was in 1867. It's nothing for us to get uncomfortable. Those are things that they had to endure. Yes.
I watched the program on Grant. That whole regiment he employed in Revere saved Vicksburg.
Okay.
And it was in the same kind of place. It was in the marshland, wetland. And they held that line. And that was the first time that a report got back about how that's effective.
Now that probably was that the Civil War?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's part of the Civil War. So we're starting right after the Civil War. You see, because after the Civil War, with the Union soldiers, they didn't know, like I said, the quandary was, were they eligible to even serve in peaceful times? Now, but I'm glad you mentioned that.
You ought to write a book on that one.
I mentioned last time about the need to try to recruit those white officers, and a lot of them did renege that they had wanted nothing to do with the black soldiers. And I kept looking between that lecture and this lecture, what caused them, the white officers, to suddenly change their mind and say, I will serve. The United States promised a lot of them a fast set entry point to officership, okay? I thought they did it out of the goodness of their hearts. But no, they said, we will fast track some of you if you would join in with these black recruits. So as I mentioned before, just real quick, 85% of especially the 9th in Louisiana could not read or write. They were just illiterate. I mean, they're coming after the slavery. You've got to understand this is 2 years after slavery, but these men were so determined, and that's the whole spirit of this whole lecture was watch them as they overcome obstacles without complaining. I did not mention the last time the pay grades. The black soldiers were paid $10 a month, and the new white recruits were paid $13 a month. But the black recruits had no problem with the $10 because a lot of them had never made $10 a month. They had lodging, food, all of the things that military people get. So there was never a big complaint about the low pay because they wanted to wear that uniform. Now, I had mentioned about their first early training, and I want to talk to you about the questioning of the courage and the bravery, because they had a lot of conflict with their peer friends in the white cavalry troop, and it never went away. But here's an interesting story that happened in the Badlands, and the Badlands are Badlands, Nebraska, and heading up to toward the Dakotas. Those are the Badlands. Well, when the 10th Cavalry was finally deployed out there in Kansas, the Badlands were so bad that the U.S. mail carriers couldn't get through. They were just wiping them out, the desperados or whomever, and they were wiping them out. So they tried to use the white cavalry troops, and the white cavalry troops, after a while, said, no, we can't do it. Then they tried some Native Americans, and that didn't work. So everybody was asked to do it, and lo and behold, at the end, they told the Buffalo Soldiers, you're gonna have to do it because we don't have anybody else to do it. So they didn't get the option to say whether they thought they would do it or not. So the same people that they questioned bravery became the default U.S. carriers of this critical U.S. mail. And they did it willingly, and it was not a problem. But I want to tell you one story that came out about this one private. His name was Fillmore Robertson. The first time I read this story, he just kind of stuck with me every time I do this. Fillmore Robertson was a young, I don't know if he was more than 20 years old, But in the winter of 1868, they had some critical confidential papers that had to get from one fort to another fort. And they chose Fillmore Roberts to take these with the understanding this is super critical information. Fillmore Roberts left the camp in 1868, Fort Gibson, in the dead of winter, but he never made it, or he never reported with the papers to the destination. Everybody on, bless their heart, the white cavalry said, well, we told y'all you can't trust the soldiers, you can't do that. And they called him a deserter, they classified him as a deserter. And it was in his records. Well, that next spring, about 3 or 4 months later, you know, when the snows thaw and the rivers go down and things like that, a patrol group came upon a body lodged in the willows in the middle of this river. And they didn't know what it was. It was just somebody's body. But when they went over there, they noticed that it was a soldier, okay? And the soldier had a backpack strapped around his neck, and it said U.S. mail, okay? And it was Fillmore Roberts' body because he had tried to cross this river in the dead of winter when it was swollen, and he just didn't make it. But he tried his best, you know, to carry that mail. But when they found his remains, he had tied it around his neck, and he just tried his best to do, you know, what he was asked to do. So they had to go back and, of course, you know, correct his records. But that's just a case of these dedicated guys doing whatever the U.S. Army told them. Just a young guy who gave his life. But I told you the last time I was here, the 9th and the 10th, they always got these second-rate horses. They always got the second-rate food and the second-rate supplies. Sometimes the food was just spoiled when they got it. The bread was molded and the meat was just spoiled. And they knew that that meat and that bread had to be rejects, cast-offs from the white cavalry. It had to be, because it was so old and so molded. So they were shifting it to those black troops, and sometimes they couldn't eat it. So what they did was, thank goodness they had some former farmers who were now cavalrymen, said, okay, well, we'll just open up our own gardens. You know, whenever we're not patrolling, we'll just grow our own potatoes and greens and things like that. So here's another, instead of super complaining, they just started their own gardening to overcome some of the despicable things that they got. But here's a letter about some of the supplies that Captain Carpenter wrote to the United States Congress, because they were constantly telling them, you've got to do better. You've got to do better with us. In 1870, this is what Captain Carpenter from Camp Supply wrote. He says, I inspected the conditions surrounding the 10th Cavalry, and I am filing this official report. The 10th Cavalry is only getting old and mean and worn out horses that are clearly the throwaways from the more favored 7th Cavalry. That's Custer. Custer was in the 7th Cavalry. Some of these horses died within days of even reaching our post. Since our first mounts, starting in 1867 until now, the 10th Cavalry has received nothing but broken down horses and old repaired equipment. I am willing to testify fully to these injustices. Signed, Captain Carpenter, 1870. So these guys were out there trying to defend our country, and they were constantly getting second-rate meat, vegetables, supplies, horses, and they're supposed to go out there on the plains and compete with those, my ancestors, those swift ponies. They're supposed to go out there and do it, but they found a way to do it. Low supplies of ammunition, as I mentioned to you the first time, they told everybody you just gotta be expert shots. That's what you gotta do. You can't waste bullets. We don't have bullets to waste. You've got to do it. Here's another letter that Ed Hatch, who was over the entire camp. Colonel Ed Hatch became so despondent with the supplies. This is what he wrote in his report. in 1873. He says, upon inspection of the 10th Cavalry at Fort Sill, I'm filing this report in 1873. Upon arrival, I found the morale and the spirit very high among the troops, although there were many new recruits in need of additional training. Upon review of the equipment and the horses, I was shocked at what I saw. Most of those horses were clearly cast-offs from the 4th and the 7th. Of the 48 horses I inspected of the F Company, 45 were definitely over 15 years old. 15 years old. Yet, those troops took excellent care of those animals as if they were newborns. Most of their artillery was so old that I feared firing most of it myself. Captain Kennedy's men in G Company were undersupplied with ammunition, low on ammunition, low on everything. I am disappointed, Colonel Ed Hatch, 1873. So even with all of the reports, no one was actually supporting them. I'm intrigued with the 9th Cavalry, and I started on them the last time. The 9th Cavalry, once they left Louisiana, they were deployed to Texas, the Rio Grande area, the roughest, toughest, meanest, ugliest part of the Old West at that time was in Texas. So the 9th had to go spend their days in Texas. Now, the military records, and I told y'all about this before, over and over and over, you see where they preferred hand-on-hand combat. You're a military guy. They just like that close fighting.
Yes, sir.
I don't.
It's not for love.
Some people thought, well, if you got horses 15 years old, you can't outrun anybody, so you got to learn how to. That's what somebody's analogy was. You got to be superior. But they clearly like the hand-on-hand fighting. By 1871, after 4 years in Texas, the 9th Cavalry had turned into a hard-hitting fighting machine in 4 years, overcoming illiteracy, overcoming poor supplies, overcoming old horses. According to the military records, by 1871, they were considered a hard-fighting unit, but they paid a price for becoming good. They denied all their furloughs. That's when you get to go home. Isn't that right, military men?
Yeah.
You get to go home and see your families and things. The 9th Cavalry, all of their furloughs were denied for over 5 years. Over 5 consecutive years, they were not allowed to leave Texas because they were so good at what they were doing. And the United States Army would rotate the white troops in 2-year intervals and let them 2 years in, and then they'd swap them out, 2 years in and swap them out. With the 9th, they said, we can't swap you out because you're too good. So they came from, we questioned your bravery and we questioned everything, to now you're indispensable. We can't do without you. So a lot of the men did not get to see their families for 4 or 5 years. They just didn't get to leave Texas. Now, in Texas, they were also scouts, because beyond Texas was, the areas and the frontiers heading towards New Mexico that a lot of America had never ventured in. At this time, a lot of Americans had never been that far west. So the 9th Cavalry became these super specialized scouts, surveying, scouting the frontiers before the settlers were allowed to go there. They would spend months and months out there on these frontiers. The bad side of that was they were isolated a lot from civilization. They did not see towns and they did not see cities because they were out there by themselves in the brutal winter, in the blazing sun, looking for water holes, looking for trails, scouting and doing all of that. So a lot of that you see on TV with the shiny cavalry guys, it was really the Buffalo Soldiers. They paid the price for that isolation because sometimes people think they were isolated because a lot of people didn't want them around settlers and things like that. But that isolation and coming in sometimes after months being out there with no supplies, they would come in frostbitten and all of that, and then the government would not give them supplies. They paid a price for that. But one of the sad stories, and I don't understand this one, but it's a human story. I told you how they guarded the wagon trains last time. Not to what you see on TV. A lot of the wagon trains were protected by the Buffalo Soldiers, but especially in Texas, they would let them guard them, but at night they made them sleep at a distance. They said, we don't want you really around us at night, around our women and children and things like that. So y'all have to sleep way over there. But just be close enough in case there's a raid or something like that. But we don't really want you sleeping. And that is ironic that you're protecting somebody, but they don't want you that close to them. And that's gotta be a self-esteem thing. But they didn't complain because they had so much work. And sometimes they would go into, I'm laughing at this because it's hard to believe. Can you imagine going into a town as a cavalry troop and people gawking at you when they realize that you're black, and everybody coming out and looking, and then the sheriff says, hold it, hold it, hold it. You can't come into the town. Well, we're here to serve you. Well, you can't come into this town. You stay on the outside because we don't want you in the stores. We don't want you in the bars. We don't want you in the saloons. We just don't want you. So whatever you were charged to do, you just have to do it on the outside. So that's how they were treated sometimes. But you'll never see in the military records where they complained because they were so honored to wear their blue uniform and they were so busy doing the work. They really didn't have time. They knew those things were going to happen, and they woke up every day dealing with obstacles. And that's how they were conditioned as military men to deal. And I guess that's, y'all are trained to deal with obstacles, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, 5 minutes. So they were conditioned to deal with obstacles. So out in Texas, they had some interesting things. Now, one of my favorite guys is this guy named Emmanuel Stance. And Emmanuel Stance was 5 feet tall. He had the short man complex. I can tell it. I'm a short man. You could tell he had the short man complex. But Emmanuel Stance, he could read and write. He was from Louisiana, and he soon became a leader. But one thing that they told him to stop doing, in the heat of battle, he would take his men and go straight at the enemy with guns blazing. He said that's the only way to go, is go straight out. He didn't believe in retreating, and he had a brilliant record, so brilliant that Emmanuel Stance definitely won the Congressional Medal of Honor. I mean, that's as high as you can go. So I like him because he was always, let's go. It's no retreat. We just always go forward. At least 14 of the soldiers won the Medal of Honor. 2 other guys that were outstanding in 1881, George Bennett, Moses Williams, and Private Augustus Waller, they all won the Medal of Honor for superior fighting. So here these men went from, are they brave enough? Are they good enough? Now they're winning the Congressional Medal of Honor. So you didn't win in the Western frontier. You did not win the Congressional Medal of Honor unless you were really, really strong. And a Buffalo Soldier winning it, you had to be really, really good. Now, Clifton Creeves, I like this guy because he won the Medal of Honor, but he won it in 1876. But the sad thing about him winning the Medal of Honor, when he died and his widow went to receive his pension, the United States government said they couldn't even find records on him. They told her for year after year, we can't give you a pension because we can't find, any records. And she had to say, wait a minute, my husband won the Congressional Medal of Honor. And they made her jump through hoops until she finally got a lawyer to go to the United States Archives and said, you can't treat the black soldiers' widows like this. So we cannot do this. So, and a lot of their widows had to jump through hoops. So it just went on and on and on. But in the summary, I'll read you what, this is a real good letter. In 1870, Captain Morrow from the 9th Cavalry in Texas said, the men of the 9th Cavalry, after over months and months, over 1,000 miles of marching, and the last 200 miles were unknown territories to all of us. He says, I cannot speak too highly of the conduct of the men from the 9th Cavalry that were under my command. Always cheerful, always ready, braving the severest of hardships while we were short on food supplies. And he said, the Negro soldier does not know fear and is capable of great achievements. I signed this letter April 1870. So these guys, they just had something in them, some kind of code of conduct, because I was looking at some things over the weekend, and they summarized: short on supplies, rarely lost any battles. That's the summary on the Buffalo soldiers. Short on supplies, rarely lost battles. If you look at their victory rates in battles, you'd be astonished at how successful they were. They just won most of the battles. They just had that endurance, the fortitude that they just wanted to serve, and they wanted to serve well. It's a shame that their history is not really talked about. There are books now, there are songs and things like that, but hopefully there will be more that America can share on the Buffalo Soldiers. Because once again, all they wanted to do was put on that uniform and be part of America. And to a man, they always said, all we want to be is soldiers and treated fairly. That's it. All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Questions and answers.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir. You got some? Yes, sir, please.
More of a comment than anything else.
Yes,
It
sir.
was not unusual at all for blacks to win Congressional Medal of Honors in the Civil War.
There's a bunch of them in the
There's a
Civil War.
bunch of them in the Civil War.
Bunch of them.
Then they started getting fewer and fewer. To your point, though, the few who did win them during that period, during Reconstruction, they started to lessen at that
Yeah.
point, but they were recognized. It got to the point when segregation became America's official policy. After the court case, Plessy v. Ferguson. After that time, when segregation became more ingrained in American society, the efforts of soldiers, especially in World War I, when the United States was looking for volunteers to serve in France, and black soldiers were not even allowed to go overseas as American soldiers. They were actually fitted into French units. The French welcomed them with open arms, and they fought with the French. I'm specifically referring to the Harlem Hellfighters, the 369th. These were the guys that, in particular, Privates Henry Johnson and Needham Roberts, who should, by all accounts, have won the Medal of Honor for what they did in defending their positions after a German attack in 1918. These guys were forgotten to history completely. And of course, in World War II, we had exploits of soldiers, African-American soldiers, who were also not recognized. And it's so interesting to me to see all of these awards being given to African-American soldiers in the 1990s, with President Clinton starting it, really, to see all of this post-recognition of the exploits of these African-American soldiers. And to your point again, the only thing these guys ever wanted was the opportunity for America to live up to its proclamation of being home for everyone. That's all they ever wanted.
So, and you made me think of a point. While I was doing this lecture last year, I got a note from another historian. He says, are you aware that there is a Buffalo soldier buried in your hometown? I said, no, not in Shelby. He says, oh yeah. He says, there's one and we're gonna send you the information. So there is a Buffalo soldier from the 10th Cavalry. We still don't know why he's buried there. We put it out on social media. Is he related to anybody in Shelby? Nobody has claimed him. And he's buried in a cemetery that is 5 blocks from where I grew up. So I pass it 3 or 4 times a week, and I'm always waving. And I go check on, his name is Private Charles Parks. We don't know how he got there. We don't know why he's there, but he is an official 10th Cavalry soldier.
Do you know when he was interred there?
He died in 1936. We do know where his children moved to. They moved to Milwaukee. So we know all of his children moved to Milwaukee. His name is Private Charles Parks. Okay, we have his records. We know when he went in, but we just don't know why he chose Shelby. We just don't know. Okay, but there are parks all in Shelby, but none of them are claiming him, but it was just ironic. So I go by 3 or 4, when I'm going to my old homes, I just wave at it. And I sent you, I think I sent you a picture of his burial.
Oh, you
Yeah,
did?
yeah. But it's just ironic that he's there, so we're just trying to take care of it.
It's great that there's a registry.
Yeah,
As an
yeah.
information.
yeah, 10th Cavalry. Yes, sir.
Grant was president 1869 to 1877. When he did it,
Grant,
you read the bio, it's always that. he was
Grant,
working on it.
yeah, Grant's name pops up into, also supporting the establishment of those troops. Yes, without Grant, I don't know if they would have ever formed those troops.
So the idea of being after 18 is when he left, it was just the beginning of Plessy versus Ferguson. It went back to the old.
But just their stories, and I know, it's one thing to come in and tell you where their statues are here or here, but just to think of the daily obstacles that they each day they had to wake up. Okay, we know we got obstacles. Okay, are they going to be Native American obstacles? Are they going to be Mexican? Are they going to be bandits? Are they going to be the white soldiers who don't like us? And one of the things that I didn't tell you in the first time, the negotiation of that compromise to form the 9th and the 10th, some of the senators called it an experiment. They said, we will establish it, but this is clearly an experiment just to see if blacks can survive in the military. So they called it an experiment. So they went from an experiment to congressional medal as honors. And their, like I said, their success record is really, really, really high, very unusually high compared to, now George Custer absolutely refused to serve with them or be associated with them. The brilliant George Custer, and it's documented in his records. He was adamant that he says, under no circumstance, no.
I think it's important too to remember that, to your question, in 1877, while Grant was still president, there was the compromise of that year that enabled Reconstruction to end. That's what enabled that compromise of 1877, because the election was in doubt, allowed Rutherford B. Hayes to become president, but in return for that, the South threw their support to Rutherford B. Hayes and away from Samuel Tilden. That allowed Hayes to become president, but in return, the troops had to be withdrawn from the South. And that is when you saw state constitutions start to change about who could vote and how districts were aligned. That was actually the start of gerrymandering, and how blacks lost power in Congress that they had gained during Reconstruction. But it was because of that. So Grant has a very mixed record.
The Buffalo Soldiers officially served out on the Western Plains for 24 years. I mean, they were moved into other units, but as far as the official Western frontier, they went from 1867 to 1891 out on the West, both the 10th and the 9th. So, and Fort Leavenworth is where they have those massive statues, but there, if you Google Buffalo Soldiers monuments, they are real visible out there. over here, we may not recognize them, but when you get out in the Midwest and the West, yeah, they are definitely. So, I appreciate that dialogue, but it's just history.
There's something you're missing in that when you start going from Reconstruction all the way up to Plessy versus Ferguson. The New York Historical Society had a most powerful subject I've ever seen on lynching. Right up into the 20s and 30s, you could be in Florida, go the wrong way, you'd be lynched.
Well, you could get lynched in 1959 too.
Well,
if you're
The point that I'm making is that it was always with them in addition to what they had to do in the West.
Over 4,000
it's-
African Americans were known to have been lynched in that period.
It's interesting you said that because in Shelby, North Carolina, in our courthouse, we have records of lynchings. So you don't have to go, I can just take you, if you go home with me today, I'll show you where they lynched on the courthouse grounds.
There's one in Charlotte.
And as far as lynchings go, it was a family affair. Kids got out of school to witness lynchings.
They
Oh, yeah.
actually made postcards.
They made postcards and signatures. I mean, if you really want to talk about lynchings were publicized before the lynching.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely.
Newspaper articles, people to your point, they were pretty big.
So, Artie, so you found that the Buffalo Soldiers has a significant location in the museum up in DC. I didn't get, when I went to that trip, we didn't get to talk about that, but do you know if there's a significant area in the museum?
I think there is an area. I don't know if it's significant, but there is an area. Does anybody know the answer in the, are you talking about the African American Museum or the Smithsonian?
Smithsonian.
Does anybody know in the Smithsonian, do the Buffalo Soldiers have a significant space in the,
I've not seen it.
yeah,
I've been to-
and I'm wondering now, do they have a spot in the Charleston?
They
What about the
probably
Charleston?
do. Yeah, but the
Smithsonian,
Smithsonian changes their exhibits so frequently.
Yeah.
They probably have at some point, but.
But it's probably not dynamic, is it?
Yeah, I would doubt it.
There is some in the new museum in Charleston.
Yeah,
There is
it's
some
probably, I'm thinking in the new
Talking
museum in
South
Charleston.
Carolina?
Yeah, that new African American museum.
Yeah, opened last year. Opened
I got that.
Opened last July.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, that, it's about a year old, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, opened
And they're
in
pushing
June
it,
of
yeah,
last.
it's supposed to be premier.
It's a genealogical resource as well.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Ron, thank you so much for sharing that rich history and honoring Black History Month. And I also forgot to mention that Ronald brought his books.
Oh, yeah, I have books, I'll sell them, sign them, yeah,
Yeah, I gotta take care of that.
yeah, thank you so much.
Excuse me, sir, I have to leave.
Okay.
I have a 1 o'clock appointment, I'm already leaving. I appreciate and I'm impressed with the American history knowledge that we
Oh,
have.
yeah.
Oh, they're a bunch of show-offs.
Well, that's just like history.
I mean, some, you get a little education and it's how they do it. I was sitting there soaking everything in and y'all was sharing, I was just soaking it in.
Saying it's true, if you don't understand history, you're
Don't be, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Come back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, bye, Rebecca. No, you gotta take care of business, that's money, you gotta make money. Thank you, okay, so, with that, being said, we had, Happy Dollars, that's what I looked at the first, couldn't get the name out. Happy Dollars. And for visitors, the Happy Dollars is anything that you're feeling blessed about, happy about today, so $1.50.
I will make my contribution, I know you will, but
I am happy because I got my car back yesterday. So,
That's a good thing.
Yes.
Wow.
I am also happy that we have a new peace committee chairperson, and her name is Donna Dunlap from the Charlotte Club. So Cheryl, you probably know Donna. She's the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
Wonderful.
yes, and I'm thankful for that.
Awesome. Any other Happy Dollars?
Oh, I always have one. I gotta be the one putting something in there. And as always, thank you for being here today. I appreciate that history is just fantastic.
Yes.
Breaking that down. Enjoyed it today very much.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I'm doing mine online.
Fine.
And I just wanted to say my happiness is, first of all, I'm just thinking about the health of it all. I'm glad of the positive reports. We're hearing about Joy, our treasurer, that she is coming about in the most positive way. And it's so great to see you out and about and how well you are doing again. Jenny, it is great to see how well you are doing again. And then, hi, and Angie, the same with you. We've had some folks go, we had some.
Wait for her next week. Angie, is it next week?
Next week?
2 weeks. Is it next week? Angie, is it next week?
Next weekend.
Next week.
Oh.
All right.
Yeah, I'll throw $5 in online for that.
Carol, I speak put $1 in also. I don't know if you wanted to say.
Oh, really?
Especially happy about anything.
I'm just happy to be back. You invited me back.
Yes. So, and adding what I was saying here, because I had two, you were a part of my Happy Dollar statement, Happy Year. Such great knowledge and information shared. Sincerely appreciate it. I've learned so much. And he created some dialogue that he gave me more
I
knowledge.
appreciate your dialogue.
I'm not through, I need to talk.
And lastly, for me, Tage, one of our newest, Impact Club, Tage Gord. Am I saying it right? Gord? Is it Tage Gord?
It's Gourday.
Gorday. Do a little French accent on the end of it. So thank you for being with us today, Tage. It's so great to see you
Thank
again.
you.
We end up next week.
Yes. Oh, yes. Next week.
Yes.
That's right, Tage.
What?
Next week is a big day. Big day for you. So we're
Oh.
so glad to have you.
Thank
So
you.
with that being said, we have the raffle.
Speaker here, sir, would you pick this?
I didn't get you. I got you this time. I messed up the last time.
Wrong number.
Okay, I got it.
You got his today? It's one of the sticky stuff.
Just tell me what it is and I'll say it. All right, 052019.
019.
Don't look at it. Don't look for it.
Dave again. Dave wins the raffle again. Dave wins again. Yes. He told Bob, he said, don't even look for it. I got it. Thanks for the donation. And as a last reminder, if you please like it, I know I'm going to go over, Ron does have his books that he would love to autograph for you as well. If you'd like to get one of his books. I do have one and it's really, really nice. I'm going to get another one. So thank you again, Ron. I am so excited to have you here. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and do the 5-way test to close out. And again, you guys are a beautiful, beautiful sight. It's so great to see you all. But of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And will it be fun? Yes, the Dilworth way. Let me take care of my donation.
Thank you. Truly appreciate it. We are looking forward to getting, someone.
I hope that was.
All right.
Good to see you, sir.
They're still fighting.
Are you coming on these?
Oh,
I'll
let my tickets.
That's okay.
Try to get-
Thank you.